Well, I actually want to back up just a little, because the question of evil is a very interesting one, and is actually a very difficult one in fantasy. The originator of what we tend to think of as modern-day fantasy is, of course, Tolkien. Although there were earlier writers like Lord Dunsany and even Voltaire going back, who wrote what we would now consider fantasy, as well as contemporaries of Tolkien who were also writing fantastical literature. But Tolkien really had the biggest influence. But when you actually look at his stories, one of the, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy Lord of the Rings a great deal, but one of the disturbing things about it from a modern standpoint is the fact that in his world, who your parents are determine who you are. It's almost a medieval attitude that your bloodline is the determining factor in whether or not you're a noble or a peasant or what you can do. There's only one character who really breaks that in Tolkien, and that's Gollum, who starts as essentially a hobbit and ends up becoming this evil creature. But all of the others, the orcs, the elves, the dwarves, they're all orcs, elves, and dwarves, and their natures are predetermined, and you never have a good orc. You never have an evil elf. Even though, yes, I know the orcs came from the elves, but that's fantasy. That's niggling details. And a lot of fantasy deals with stereotypes like that. It's essentially racism in another form, especially since the evil races tend to be dark-skinned quite a lot. And I think that's a problem that fantasy has not addressed adequately, although it has gotten better in recent years. When I started this series, I made things easy on Eragon. The only creatures he kills in the first book are the Urgles, which are very tall with big horns on their heads. I mean, they're monsters. They look like monsters. And so it was very easy for him to kill them and not feel as if, oh, I just killed another person. Later on in the story, though, I felt it was very important that the Urgles be shown that they're not inherently evil. And I've actually made a point of doing that with each of my villains. The evil sorcerer Durza at the end of the first book, we actually see inside his head a little bit at the end of the book. We see his memories of how he became essentially evil. And of course, it was because he trying to do the right thing. I mean, the thing is no one does what they think is actually wrong. Even if you don't like the choice you're making, you make it because you think it is the best choice you can make under the circumstances. So my king, Galbatorix, the villain...
you won't change him.
Excuse me?
At the end, he can't be a good man.
No, he's not. He's not a good man. Yeah. But the point is, he certainly believes he's a good man.
Oh. Yeah.
Or from his point of view, he might know that others don't like him, but and I'm sure he's aware of that quite acutely. But he believes he's done the right things during his lifetime, and it's not as if he was born and was destined to become a villain. Now, I mean, I think, there certainly is a whole argument about how much of your personality is shaped between birth and genetics and environment and stuff. But...
what do you think? 50-50, the science?
I would go with 50-50.
Yeah, okay.
I think environment has a huge amount to do with how you turn out, but at the same time, who you are, genetically has some play in it. But... no, so the question of evil is a difficult one in fantasy, and is one I think has been addressed poorly in the past, but it's getting better. And it's one I tried to twist around a bit, like having the Urgles becoming allies of the good guys eventually. Yeah.